I am so glad you convinced me that the family car should be the Defender 110. It is so beautiful inside, it's so comfortable, and it just feels indestructible.
Yes, it really is. I've been waiting a long time for the new model to come out. The Defender 110, I'm telling you, it's my favorite car of all times. It's my third one. You know, I have stories of going off road. The guy managed the group. He was like, "What are you doing in this beautiful car?" I'm like, "I'm going off road." He's like, "Are you sure? Because you can use one of ours." And then they look like Mad Max cars. I'm like, no, we're going to do this. And he was shocked.
Wow. Well, it's great because the Defender has been reimagined for 21st century adventure, and its unparalleled off-road ability as well as its robust interior are invaluable whether you're headed towards uncharted territory or just a weekend of exploration. The Defender 110 tackles challenging surroundings with absolute confidence. The SUV conveys strength outside and in, featuring peerless technology like an intuitive driver display and an award-winning infotainment system. That's my favorite part, to keep you connected no matter where the journey takes you. Adventure is unique to everyone, and so is the Defender. Choose from the two-door Defender 90, the four-door Defender 110, or the larger Defender 130 with the ability to seat up to 8 passengers. You'll find uncompromising performance in all three. So pack up and go even further with the Defender 110. Learn more at LandRoverUSA.com/Defender.
These days, we're all investors, trying to be smart with our money despite our worst impulses. But at iShares, we believe that deep down inside of every investor is a better investor. One that's just waiting to be let out. Explore iShares ETFs and insights and let your best investor out. Visit iShares.com for more information.
This isn't your average business podcast, and he's not your average host. This is the James Altucher Show.
So 2023 was kind of a sucky year. And I mean that in the most personal sense, but also in a broad sense. Like, okay, COVID, 2020, 2021, maybe 2022, we were just getting out of COVID. So what was 2023 all about? And I'm going to talk about this in the context of how you can think about 2024 to improve your life. And I feel like 2023, the world, this is going to sound a little weird, but the world was a little bit on pause. Like, we didn't really know which direction or what direction the world was going in. Like, on the one hand, geopolitically, it's just a train wreck out there. Like, every scenario, like if you watch a movie about, oh my gosh, World War III is coming, it might be a movie about 2023. Like, everything that's going on in 2023 seems like a precursor. Like, people were talking about the Bible and like this might be the end times. Like, that's pretty scary because there's all this conflict in the Middle East, and it's horrible conflict. There's these proxy wars in Russia, Ukraine. There's the entire world is looking at what's going on in these sort of proxy wars that are happening around the world. Meanwhile, the Federal Reserve was first, they were panicking about inflation. And now it seems like everybody's panicking that there might be a recession. I'll talk about that in a second. You know, which is it? Is it inflation or a recession or both, which is called stagflation? Then we have everybody's nervous next year about politics and the presidential election. I'm going to make one prediction about the presidential election. Hear me out. Everything you could possibly predict right now is not going to happen. So I think 2024 is going to be totally unpredictable in a lot of ways. And right now, everyone's going on TV telling their predictions for the year. But here's the only thing I can predict is that it's unpredictable. So what'd you say, Jay?
I'm just curious. What if it's an Asian president? Asian became a president of the United States.
Who Asian is running?
I don't know. It's unpredictable, right? So maybe the Asian running mate or candidates is not running yet.
Yeah, that could be. So, okay. Tip number one for after you listen to this podcast, Google Ronny Chieng, Chieng, and he has this one clip about why Asians should rule the world. And Was that the clip, Jay? What he talks
No,
about?
he was. I think I don't know if it's the clip, but we saw it in person, which is why Asian would be the best presidential candidate for United States.
Yeah. So Google that. Ronnie Chang, funny guy. You've seen him in movies. But okay, that's tip number one. We'll give various tips throughout this. Meanwhile, my prediction about unpredictability is that Biden will not be the nominee for the Democratic nominee for president of the United States, and Donald Trump will not be the Republican nominee. So these are the things that seem like no-brainers. Like if I go to predicted.org, let's go to our favorite gambling site. I love gambling on politics. But right now, Donald Trump, they're giving him an 80% chance of winning the Republican nomination, and Nikki Haley is second with a 14% chance. Ron DeSantis is amazingly with 6 cents, Vivek Ramaswamy 5 cents. And for the Democratic nomination, by the way, Donald Trump is, and predicted.org, Donald Trump is more likely to win the Republican nomination than Joe Biden is to win the Democratic one. So they give Joe Biden a 73% chance and Gavin Newsom 18%, Kamala Harris 7%, Hillary Clinton 3%, and Pete Buttigieg, the Secretary of Transportation, 1%.
Is he running?
No, he's not running. They're just, just like Kamala Harris is not running, but they're giving her, the reason they're giving her a 7% chance is because they're saying there's a slight chance Joe Biden could die. Kamala Harris will be the new president, and then she would be the presidential nominee for the Democrats. So, but I would vote no, or I would bet no on both of those. So you're getting a bargain, I think, on both of those, and I think you'll make money because even if one of them doesn't get the nomination, you're going to make a huge amount of money. Now, when I say a huge amount of money, the maximum you could bet on predicted.org is $1,000 per bet. So knock your socks off. So what were you about to say, Jay?
I just want to say this is not a gambling advice for anyone that's out.
No, it is gambling advice. I am giving gambling advice. I would gamble. I would bet no on both of those people. And I'd bet no on Kamala Harris too, but that's not worth it. You only want to make gambles that are worth it, where the risk reward is there. So I think if you just bet no on one of those, it's not a good risk versus reward bet. But if you bet no on both of those, I think it's extremely likely that at least one of them will not be. I think both of them won't be the nominees, but I think it's extremely likely that it won't be the case that both of them are the nominees. So you can make a lot of money if you bet no on both. That is official gambling advice, and but you can't hold me to it. So it's not a normal period right now. So what does a normal period mean? Like from 2010 to 2019, that was sort of normal. We were in between the financial crisis and COVID, and just it was business as usual. Yes, we had weird elections and so on, but whatever. But now everything's a little bit weird. Like what's going on with remote work? What's going on with cities? What's going on with the economy? What's going on with the Fed? What's going on with all these wars? What's going to go on with the election next year? What's going on with crypto? What's going on with AI? All of these things are very confusing. And to be honest, a little bit stressful. I feel like I'm just going to be honest. I don't think I really had a great year this past year. There's nothing specific. It's not like I experienced any real loss in my life, and everything went, continued to do the podcast. We had great guests, continued other business activities. But like, for instance, over the past 15 years, I make my living, investing in private companies. Then eventually, they get bought or hopefully IPO or whatever. But because of kind of this post-COVID lag and the Federal Reserve raising rates, nothing really happened. No companies were acquired, nothing was bought. So that was like a slow year for me. And I'm still getting used to, living in I lived in New York City my whole adult life, and now I'm living a little north of Atlanta, Georgia. I'm still getting used to that. Like, I don't really have a lot of friends here, although I'd like to, and I'd like to have more friends in general. So I've been starting to speak at a few more conferences just to meet people and get out there. And I really like my podcast guests, but I feel like I used to do them more in person, and then you could build more of a relationship with them. And now I do them remotely, like everything's remote now. So, and I thought I would enjoy that, and I do, but I miss kind of the bonding that happens. So, and then, like I've been on this journey where I thought back in 2022, when I started early 2022, I started playing in tournaments, or late 2021, I started playing in these chess tours. I thought it'd be right away, I'm going to get back to my old level. Like nothing's going to stop me. And I did all my techniques for learning, and I've learned an enormous amount. I've had amazing adventures, and we'll talk about the concept a little more in a second. But I still didn't achieve the level I wanted to achieve, and that was somewhat frustrating. Like, I go to a tournament and I lose a bunch of games. It doesn't really feel great. And then I start thinking, what's wrong? And on the one hand, I feel like I know more than I've ever have before, and that's been very, very pleasurable. Like, learning is always pleasurable, but I just didn't achieve the goals I set out to achieve for 2023.
Can I ask you something? Like,
Yeah.
when you went out and set out a goal, like you said, you're frustrated and you're still disappointed you hasn't reached a goal yet. Like, how long were your initial thought that you
I thought it
can
would
achieve?
be, honestly, I thought it would be 6 months tops.
6 months.
Yeah, I thought
Wow.
like, for a variety of reasons, I thought 6 months. And now it's been like 2 years. And again, I think I am actually better than I ever was, but my variance is so big, as I've talked about in prior episodes. Like, my best moments are much better than my best moments were 25 years ago, but my worst moments are so much worse that they average out to me seeming like I haven't improved at all. And so it's hard to demonstrate that I've achieved any goal. And so, and Robert Greene, remember on the podcast, I don't know if it was before we started the podcast or during, Robert Greene disagreed with me. Arthur Brooks disagreed with me. Like, all these people I really admire disagreed with me. Amy Morin disagreed with me. She's the author of 13 Things Mentally Strong People Don't Do.
When did she disagree with you? When you go on her podcast?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So, because she thinks that what I've achieved has been meaningful and worthwhile, and worthwhile enough, for instance, to write a book, which is what I've been planning on doing. And that's the other thing. In 2023, I didn't really write at all. I mean, I wrote a little bit, but not like, I used to write for 20 years. I wrote every single day, and I didn't really do that. Instead, I've been pursuing this other thing, and is it as meaningful? Is it as worthwhile? So I don't even know. It's not like I'm depressed or down, although I've had moments, but I've really been reflective lately. Like, how can I make next year a little bit different? And so I want to talk about, everybody's sitting around now thinking, well, what's your New Year's resolution? And I've always hated the idea of New Year's resolutions because it sort of feels artificial. Like, why January 1st is the day everyone's going to, okay, it's January 1st. The entire planet has to change their lives now today because it's January 1st. I marked it in the calendar, change your life on January 1st. And like 7.8 billion people have to change their lives on January 1st. So I sort of don't believe in New Year's resolutions.
I think I have a theory why January 1st. I think I'm going through this as well. It's because there's this thing called winter depressions. You're depressed during the winter because of
like seasonal affective disorder.
Yeah. So when the New Year comes around, it's supposed to be this grand thing. Like, we're gonna be happy on the 1st of January. We have to be happy. So it's like, okay, now I gotta be happy. So I have to change my whole thinking for the past couple of months because of the seasonal depressions. I think that's the reason why the whole New Year's resolutions comes around.
Yeah, but I sort of agree with that. Like, but also, why is January 1st the beginning of the year? Like, I sort of feel like every year September 1st, like Labor Day, really is the beginning of the year. And the reason I think that is because summer's over and everybody goes back to school. Now, I realize this is only true for the Northern Hemisphere, not the Southern Hemisphere, but it always seems to me like the beginning of a year starts in September, because that's when, for the first 25 years of my life, that's what would happen, is that my life would change in September of every year. And even when I took my first few jobs in my 20s, they always seem to start on around September 1st. So it's like our life sort of naturally follows that cycle. But anyway, that's another thing completely. You know what I love about fantasy sports is that even though I'm not going to be a great basketball player or a baseball player or a football player or whatever, I feel like I get to participate and make decisions and use my knowledge of these different leagues or these different sports to compete. So it's like I can pick my team or I can pick my favorite players and I could use my knowledge to make predictions and maybe even make money. So with the basketball season here, you can now pick combo projections across football and basketball from the Specials League on Prize Picks. This is a league created specifically for combo projections that include two or more players from different sports or leagues. Want to play alongside some of Prize Picks' favorite players like rapper Meek Mill and comedian Andrew Schultz, who's also been a guest on this podcast, and I've been a guest on his? You can now find community plays under the promos tab of the app to view entries for some of the biggest names in the Prize Picks community each week. Look, Prize Picks even offers a reboot policy so that your entries stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. For football and basketball games, if you have a player who exits the game in the first half and does not return in the second, that player is rebooted. Prize Picks is the only daily fantasy sports platform with an injury insurance policy. What? So I love playing it. I love anywhere where I can use analytical ability with my interests to demonstrate some skill and maybe make some money. And I like the game-like aspect. I do wish they had chess as a category on prizepicks.com, but I'll settle for what they've got. Maybe I should make my own fantasy chess league. But in any case, I love Prize Picks. Go to prizepicks.com/James. Use code James for a first deposit match up to $100. That's the easiest $100 you're ever going to make. So that's prizepicks.com/James and use code James. Daily fantasy sports made easy. The future of learning is definitely online. Like, it's such BS that you have to spend $200,000 or take $200,000 in loans and go to some fancy school when it's useless. It doesn't guarantee you a job. Most employers, including me, do not care about degrees or grades or anything like that. We want to care that you love what you're doing, that you know what you're doing, in some cases that you have experience or that you're willing to learn. But people in general love learning and are curious. Like, the key to success is curiosity. And I think masterclass.com is the perfect model for online learning. I'm really happy they're sponsoring this episode. If you're going to give a gift, give the gift of learning. Masterclass makes a meaningful gift this season for you and anyone on your list, because both of you can learn from the best to become your best, from leadership to effective communication to cooking. Let me tell you some of the classes I've taken. I've taken comedy from Steve Martin. I mean, can you believe I can take a class from Steve Martin on comedy, or Judd Apatow, my favorite comedy director? I could take an actual class from him on writing. Wolfgang Puck on cooking. Dan Brown on writing, or Judy Bloom, who's been on this podcast, on writing. By the way, Wolfgang Puck also has been on this podcast. It's such a pleasure. I try to take classes all the time from masterclass.com. And whether you're watching Masterclass on TV or listening in audio mode in the app or on their site, the quality speaks for itself. It's like these Masterclass instructors are your own personal mentors that are going to help you reach the next level. How much would it cost to take one-on-one classes on comedy from Steve Martin or on chess from Gary Kasparov? You just wouldn't be able to do it. But it would cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. With a Masterclass annual membership, it's $10 a month. Memberships start at $120 a year for unlimited access to one-on-one classes with all 180 plus Masterclass instructors. So it's not just $120 for one instructor. You get all 180 plus Masterclass instructors. Boost your confidence and find practical takeaways you can apply to your life and at work. And if you own a business or are a team leader, use Masterclass to empower and create future-ready employees and leaders. That's the real education in today's world. So this holiday season, you can give one annual membership and get one free at masterclass.com/JAS. JAS, of course, stands for the James Altucher Show. So right now you can get two memberships for the price of one at masterclass.com/JAS. Masterclass.com/JAS. Offer terms apply. with all these New Year's resolutions coming up, I want to talk about the types of things people think about when they think about resolutions. And so specifically, all of these concepts are important. What's the difference between finding meaning in your life, like as in Viktor Frankl's great book, Man's Search for Meaning? Or what is it? Is that different from finding purpose in your life? Is that different from having goals in your life? Is that different from what I've been talking about recently, having quests in your life? Is that different from what I talk about in my book, Skip the Line, having experiments in your life? And then how is that different from things like, what I call the daily practice and Choose Yourself, or what Hal Elrod calls the miracle morning, like these daily rituals and habits to improve your life? And all of these things are related and I feel are important when thinking about New Year's resolutions. So with that said, I will begin with meaning. What does it mean? And I do think this is all important. Like, if you're listening to this is what I plan to do. I plan to, quote unquote, write a manifesto for myself, which means I ask myself, what is the meaning I feel I have in life? What is a purpose for myself? What are goals that I have for this next year? What are quests that I'm on, and what does it mean, quest, which I've talked about before here, but I'll briefly talk about it again. And then what sort of experiments do I plan on trying? And of course, I feel I've drifted a little bit from my daily practice, which is a concept I write about in several of my books, but started writing about it in Choose Yourself, this was the 10th year anniversary of that. And thank you to everybody who still sends me very nice emails. Like, it's been very encouraging book to many people, and which encourages me. Like, I was telling someone the other day, I have to reread my own book because, it's sort of, I remember one time I was going to pitch this TV show called Gurus Gone Wild. Like, I know all these like self-help people, like famous self-help people, and I don't consider myself a self-help person, but I know all these self-help people whose lives are just like a wreck. And so I wanted to make a funny TV show called Gurus Gone Wild, and I pitched it to Steven Spielberg, but his group said no. They wanted me to do something else, which they didn't end up doing. But there's this idea that, you write this self-help book, and then now you're the living example of all your advice, and life is great after that. And it couldn't be further from the truth. The reason someone writes a self-help book, really, and forget about all the gurus who then sell like courses about manifesting, miracles in their lives and so on. Like, the reason you have to write a self-help book is A, you're a writer, and B, you went through something incredibly difficult in your life. Like, you suffered at some point, and out of that suffering, you came out with a solution that worked for you. And it might be the case that it just worked for you and nobody else, but you then write about it, and sometimes that's considered a self-help book. The reason I don't like to consider that self-help is because just because something works for me might not, A, I might have been lucky, and B, it might not work for anybody else. So when I talk about self-help, I'm talking about helping myself. And I love writing, so I like telling the story of it. And other people could choose whether or not they are inspired by that and wish to try similar things or their own thing or whatever. But let's talk about meaning for a second. So Viktor Frankl wrote this book, beautiful book. Well, I should say half of it is beautiful, half of it is garbage. And people say it's the most beautiful book ever, but literally only read the first half, which is the story part, not the theoretical part. And here's a guy who went to Auschwitz. His entire family was killed. And the only way he would survive every day, the only way he would avoid killing himself or wishing he was dead, was by finding meaning in his life. And the meaning, he had two things that he focused on. One is that he wanted to live, he had meaning in that he really wanted to see his wife again. And sadly, he didn't. And just thinking about it makes me sad for him. But the other meaning he found in his life is that he felt if he survives this concentration camp and this period of his life, he was going to write about his search for meaning. And that gave him meaning in life, enough meaning that it gave him, meaning gives you energy. And it gave him the energy to survive the worst, most horrific conditions. Like everybody was scared, everybody was starving, people were dying every day. The Germans were randomly killing people in Auschwitz, and every day he could have been his last day. But what gave him the energy and bravery and courage to continue is he had meaning in his life that he knew he could live for a reason. Now, is this different than purpose? Maybe a little bit. Like purpose might be him saying, my purpose, he would never say, my purpose is to see my wife alive again. Like that was what gave him meaning there was he loved his wife. And if he held on to the thought that if he could see her again, it would all be worth it. And he would be happier than he was obviously in Auschwitz. So that gave him meaning in life to continue. Purpose might be something a little bit more specific. Like instead of just saying, I want to spread this message I have about finding meaning and value in your life, purpose might be a little bit more specific. It might be, well, how am I going to do that? I'm going to write a book, and I'm going to write a book telling this story. Not just that he was going to be a professor and teach classes or give lectures or talk to other people about it, but specifically that he was going to write this book, which he did, Man's Search for Meaning. I highly encourage it.
Right.
People read it.
So meaning could be the idea, and purpose is the actions that act to the idea of the meaning.
Right. Like you might think, oh, I have meaning in life and that I'm going to seek to increase world peace. And then you might have a purpose where it's like, okay, well, I'm going to join Amnesty International and create, and help them and raise money for them or help them in world situations where I can create more peace. And so it's a little bit more specific. It's like, how do you execute on what you feel is the meaning in your life?
Right.
And so the first part of a manifesto is thinking about it, like what larger vision can you, so meaning can be thought of as a very large, broad vision. Why is your life significant? What will you do in the years ahead to make your life significant and to give you a sense of fulfillment? And obviously it should be something that brings you happiness and satisfaction. And look, it might be you're going to be a great parent or grandparent, and that's your meaning. Like you're going to raise a new generation of amazing human beings who will help the world. It might be that your meaning, and by the way, meaning can change, but it might be your meaning in life is you're going to try to be as charitable as possible, or it usually involves doing some action that helps people spread some message. Or it could be your meaning is you're going to pursue your passions and be the best in the world at something and show other people how to pursue their passions. Or maybe your meaning is you're going to find meaningful relationships and you're going to have impact on all the people you interact with, positive impact on all the people you interact with. Because often I think, there's this saying, the grass is always greener on the other side. But really the true saying is the grass is greener where you water it. And so if a lot of times we have these relationships that we just kind of take for granted, or we don't really find as much satisfaction in them as we would like, we just sort of take it for granted, and maybe watering those relationships and doing it in this impactful way so you improve the lives of the people around you, that's enough to say you have meaning in your life. And again, finding purpose might be a specific mission that you're on that will allow you to accomplish your meaning. It might be the tactics that you use. So for instance, if I want to have more friendships, maybe I need to go to more meetups. And so my purpose is I'm going to go to, a meetup every week and try to make many friendships as possible to have meaningful impact on them. So again, thinking about, there's probably not much difference between meaning and purpose. Maybe I'm stretching this a little bit, but think about this in terms of like your, not just a New Year's resolution for 2024, but make a manifesto for 2024. And this is going to be about the things you value, but start with what's the meaning, the significance, value that your life is going to deliver in 2024. What's going to give you fulfillment? So when you look back on 2024, you say, you accomplished this. This meaning was enough to give you energy all throughout 2024, and then you accomplished it. So,
Can I add something on the meaning as well? When I read the book, Man's Search for Meaning, only the first part, by the way, only the first half of the book.
second part is crap.
It's kind of is. I can't get to the second part, but the first part, I think he also talked about having meaning also give you hope. To keep going in the life. In your life as well.
Like, look, if you're a nihilist and you think that there's just no purpose in life and nothing, that could be very depressing. And in fact, that philosophy is often associated with depression. But having some kind of higher sense of that your life can have an impact on others, I think does give you energy. And so then I want to talk specifically New Year's resolutions seems to fall under the category of goals. Like, here's some typical New Year's resolutions. I'm going to lose 30 pounds, or I'm going to work hard at my job and get a promotion and make some dollar amount that's been my goal. Or I'm going to run a marathon this year. So my goal is I'm going to be healthier and I'm going to prove it by running a marathon. Or I'm going to stop dating around and I'm going to meet a significant other who becomes my life partner. These are like new types of New Year's resolutions. These are goals. And a lot of people start with these. I'm saying start with meaning. So if your meaning and purpose in life is to have impact on, your kids or family members, this will really motivate the kind of goals you have. Like, maybe if my meaning in life is to write a book that inspires people, then I have to turn into a person who's inspiring. And if I'm a little bit depressed or down, I might not be so inspiring. So what can I do to not be depressed or down? Well, exercise is proven to lift up mood, and community and friendships are proven to lift up mood, and having a sense of freedom is part of this feeling of well-being where you feel satisfied in your life. So you have to become, before you can accomplish your meaning in life, you have to aim towards being the sort of person who can provide that impact and value to the world. So that could lead to what your goals are. And this is what the manifesto is for. Well, okay, let's say I want to be more impactful in my relationships with people. Well, maybe I need to live a healthier life. Or for me personally, maybe, I need to be, I feel like this year I wasn't as optimistic as I could be. I need to have better self-talk. Like, I had kind of negative self-talk. And there's a lot of evidence that positive self-talk is really important. Like, I was just reading a study yesterday. They did an experiment with maids in a hotel. And maids in a hotel, they asked them, do you feel like that you exercise enough? And they all said, no, we're working all the time. We don't exercise enough. So with half the maids, they said, it turns out that the amount of work you do when cleaning all these rooms in the hotel is sufficient, is more than the government standards of what good physical exercise per day is. So they told that to half the maids, and they didn't tell that to the other half. And guess what? A few months later, all the maids are still doing the same work, but the ones who were told that they were doing through their work enough exercise, those maids actually had lower body mass, lower blood pressure, lower cholesterol, and less, illness during the year. So and it continued throughout the whole year. So just positive self-talk and looking at everything in your life as, everything's got positive and negatives. So looking at, everything in your life and focusing on the positives, which is really hard to do, I think, will actually significantly improve your life. And again, make you closer to the sort of a person who can achieve significance in life. And so you have to say, well, okay, what are the things you do in life and how can you make them a little bit more positive? Like, let's say I had some job and I didn't enjoy doing it, but I was stuck with it for now. For whatever reason, you're not truly stuck with a job, but sometimes you are. You have to pay a mortgage. Until you find something new, you have to, keep working for your boss, whatever. how can you make it more impactful? Well, maybe you could build more meaningful connections with your customers or clients or coworkers, and you can help them out in their lives. Or maybe you could be more efficient with time management at work. And then, like we've had people on the podcast who, on their commute to work, instead of just sleeping or reading the latest gossip newspaper, they would write a page a day of a book and publish a novel at the end of the year. So trying to find the things in your life that you don't like, but turning them into positives, this could be an important part of your goals or resolutions for the year.
Oh my gosh, I love these clothes. Mizzen and Main. That's Mizzen and Main. It really is the most comfortable work clothes. Travel clothes. I had to travel this whole week. I'm traveling for a week and a half, and I just took Mizzen and Main clothes with me. Close out 2023 in style with comfortable, breathable, packable, and machine washable pieces from Mizzen and Main. As you wrap up your year-end goals, enjoy a Mizzen and Main dress shirt that you can wear confidently. I like that they've very, very just nice, solid colors. I don't really like to get all fancy in patterns and everything, although they do have some pattern shirts, but very comfortable clothes, stretchable pants. It's just super comfortable, but they look professional, and you can wear them casually or professionally. I like some of their flannel shirts or untuck shirts. I love untuck. I never tuck in. So again, whether you're shopping for a special someone or giving yourself the gift you really want, I just buy myself gifts. Mizzen and Main is the perfect gift for any guy who works, travels, and or cares about looking and feeling great. As you could tell by my many photos across the internet, I care about looking fantastic. I'm practically a model. And let's be honest, every guy loves to look great. So again, shop now at mizzenandmain.com and save 20% when you spend $130 or more using promo code James. That's promo code James at Mizzen and Main, Mizzen and Main.com.
I'm strategic, curious, and driven.
I'm good at puzzles, solving problems, and usually know who the killer is in movies within minutes.
I'm a planner, an organizer, and a great collaborator.
And I have what it takes.
I have what it takes
To succeed in accounting.
Did you know you may already be perfect for accounting? Bring your talents to joinaccountingplus.com and let us help you develop them into a meaningful career that can take you wherever you want to go.
The other thing about goals I feel like goals are focused on self-improvement, which is good. That's fine. So I can say, I'm going to have a goal. I'm going to write 10 ideas a day down, which is a goal that I always have and try to live by. But really sticking to that and marking it off the calendar every day. Okay, I did it today. That's a good goal that improves my life, because if I write down 10 ideas a day, I will exercise my idea muscle, become more creative, or keep maintaining my creativity. And maybe if I come up with enough good ideas, maybe it'll change the circumstances of my life for the better. I'll at least be watering the creativity side of my life. So I feel like goals, and again, this is in your manifesto. What are your goals? What are your New Year's resolutions? I feel like goals are about improving your habits. Like, I might have a goal. I'm going to not drink as much, or I'm not going to smoke, whatever it is, not smoke as much, whatever. Then I have what I call, and I've talked about before on this podcast, but I'll just briefly talk about it. I have what I call quests, which are different from goals. So we've talked about quests before, but a quest might be, in my lifetime or in the next 10 years, I want to visit every country in the world, or every state, every state in the country, or I want to learn 10 different languages, or like a quest is something that's a little bit impossible, a little bit improbable. People won't really understand why you're doing it. Like, it'll sound a little crazy to people. Like maybe you have a quest, you want to go to the championship of every sports league. Like you want to go to the World Series, you want to go to the NBA Finals, you want to go to the Super Bowl, you want to go to the Stanley Cup in hockey. I'm amazed that I know all the championships for every sport, but maybe that's like a fun quest that you have. And again, something a little weird, something a little quirky, something where people don't really understand why you want to do it. But for you, there might be meaning in it. And in subtle ways, it might improve your life. Like, again, I have this quest to be better at chess at the age of 55 than I was before I took a 25-year break in my 20s, where I was ranked a fairly strong master. And so I've been on this quest, and it's people don't understand. Like some group of people think that I'm delusional because 55-year-olds are just different than 25-year-olds, and my ability really is different and worse. And kids have more natural skills and talents, particularly kids who are working at it. And so one group of people tell me I'm delusional. Another group of people think it's frivolous. So what are you telling me, James? You're going to just travel around and play a board game with what now turns out to be at least 50% kids? Sounds a little weird. Sounds a little strange. I was joking with my daughter about this. Like, she said to me, like, sometimes you're like an 8-year-old. And I'm like, well, that makes sense. I basically love playing board games with kids now. And it's not just kids. Like there's all, it's at least 50% adults and people in their 20s or 30s, but very few people as old as me. And it turns out the statistics are you could count on fewer fingers than one hand how many people have done what I'm trying to do, which is why many people think I'm delusional. But why go on a quest? Why find a holy grail? Like King Arthur was going for the holy grail, which he never found. Why do it? Well, there's a lot of reasons. One is you're going to have adventures. Well, actually, the most important is you love doing it. So I might love playing this game, and I might love learning more about it, and I might love improving at it and meeting friends, and I might love that subculture. So when I had a quest of being a great stand-up comedian, I loved the subculture, and I loved hanging out at comedy clubs and meeting other comedians and studying comedy. It was so funny. I was laughing all the time, and I miss that a little bit. I feel like I don't laugh as much, and I don't make audiences laugh anymore because I'm not doing stand-up comedy. Like it was a visceral, great feeling. So maybe a quest might be just once next year, do stand-up comedy. But in any case, that was a quest of mine for many years, and I did it, and I had so many adventures. I mean, I traveled all around the country, and I had audiences love me, but I had audiences who shouted and screamed at me in anger, and I went all over the world, really. Well, right before COVID, went to every major city in the Netherlands and performed comedy with Tony Woods, which was an adventure into itself. Like Tony Woods was Dave Chappelle's mentor. And Jay, which reminds me, we got to get Tony Woods on the podcast at some point.
Again, let's go.
Like Dave Chappelle's even doing a special with him right now. So, and Dave Chappelle shouted him out when he won the Mark Twain Award for funniest guy. Anyway, that was a quest, and it changed my life. It made me a better writer. It made me a better public speaker. It made me funnier. It gave me a wider network. It gave me more stories to talk about. It was an amazing, amazing set of adventures that took several years. And I mean, I owned a comedy club for a while, so I got that experience. And just a fascinating set of adventures. Did it make me any money? No. Did it change my life? Absolutely. Did it give me a new career? No, definitely not. In fact, I wonder now if I could have had a more impact on people if I did anything other than stand-up comedy, which is mostly useless to other people. But again, we're not talking about meaning. We're not talking about purpose. We're not talking about goals. We're talking about quests where give yourself a break. Pick something you love, you always wanted to do. It's a little impossible. Everyone thinks you're crazy, but this is your quest. And it's going to be fun, and you're going to have adventures along the way. And when you're done with it, you're going to have amazing stories to tell. Like, that's a quest. Jay, you were going to say something?
Yeah, I was about to say, like, I feel like your quest shouldn't just focus on, like, outsider, exterior people. Like, like you keep saying, like, maybe if you didn't go on this quest, you could have done more stuff that help other people. I feel like Quest
I
is,
agree with
like
you.
you
I
said,
agree with
yeah.
you, which is why quests are very, I would say a quest is selfish. Like
Yeah.
I'm doing this, initially I was doing this chess thing or the comedy thing for myself. And then what I tend to do is, and this is also part of a manifesto, I do feel it's almost too selfish. And so I create a larger meaning around the quest. Like, okay, I'm going to really explore this from a neuroscience point of view, from a pursuit of excellence point of view, from a sports psychology point of view, and on and on. And then I'm going to write a book about it. So I'm giving a larger meaning around it. But even if I didn't have that larger meaning around it, I would still do this quest. Now, it just so happens that this quest is going to lead to me writing what I hope and what I think will be an amazing book. But so that's the larger meaning around it. But I'm still going to do the quest, which is I want to just get better and win a lot of games and crush other people at chess the way I used to when I was in my 20s, even more so. But what's happened along the way is I've had these unbelievable adventures. Again, if I were to describe some of these adventures, which I will eventually, it would blow people's minds. Even all the people who said I'm completely delusional, if I describe what had happened, they would say, oh, yeah, I wish that would have happened to me too. So quests are always worth it because they're amazing and you'll be amazing as you become the version of yourself who could succeed at this quest, whether you succeed or not. And you'll have fascinating stories to tell. It's great. I just went to a Christmas party. It's great to be able to tell these stories. People are love the stories. So again, though, your quests don't have to be huge. It doesn't have to be I'm going to run a marathon or I'm going to learn 27 languages. I've had mini quests, like the time that I, started a GoFundMe campaign to buy Greenland, because I remember Trump wanted to buy Greenland, and then somehow the Prime Minister of Denmark said it's not for sale, and that set me on this whole mini quest of like, well, why does somebody want to buy Greenland? What does Denmark have to do with this? How can I make a crowdfunding campaign to buy a country? And I learned huge amounts of things. I had stories to tell, but the whole quest basically took a weekend. And so some quests are mini quests, and I call those more experiments. So, and some experiments could be big, some could be small. Like an experiment of mine has been notepad.com, NOTEPD.com. It's a website, kind of Twitter-like website where you can write your 10 ideas a day. I don't know if that quest or experiment has succeeded or not. Again, quests don't require success. It just requires that you go on that adventure and you see what adventures happen along the way. And so success is not a requirement. It would be nice, but it's not a requirement. And so I've done many mini quests. And again, I refer more of those to experiments. Like I'm trying to think, Jay, what other experiments? My memory's gotten really bad because I have to memorize all sorts of stuff for this podcast like every single day. Do you remember any other experiments I've done? I feel like I've had like dozens over the past year or so.
You always do experiment, right? We try Xcaster. Remember?
Oh yeah, we tried to build a competitor to Zoom, which totally failed. But we learned a lot about the whole business of streaming.
Yeah, that made me appreciate like Squadcast more. Like it's a very hard thing to do.
Yeah, and also didn't we learn that like on Zoom and a lot of these streaming platforms, all the video goes to China, it gets processed and then comes back here in real time. Here, like even this video we're doing right now is like going to China right now, this second, getting processed and coming back here because there's some company in China that does it for everybody.
But apparently not Squadcast though. Squadcast said that they're using the company in Taiwan.
Oh, okay.
So that's a competitor right
Taiwan,
there.
We're in trouble.
Yeah, then we're in trouble. But we have that, and then we did like the experiment. Like you go on Instagram Live almost every day.
Oh yeah, so we did
that
the
was
Instagram
sort of like
Live experiments, and that was great, and that did have meaning. So the quest was like, can I go on Instagram Live every day and talk about things relevant to people? But it had meaning in that over the year or two after that, and that I did that mostly during the COVID period. A lot of people were scared during COVID, and I was trying to interpret the news every day in a way that was a little more optimistic than I felt the news was being more pessimistic than they should be. So that was like an experiment, and that experiment worked, and that was like a mini quest.
Yeah.
But there's all sorts of experiments, like, I'm going to go for pilot lessons, and I might not succeed in becoming a pilot, but I'm going to fly a plane. And so I
You
did that
actually?
a few months ago.
Do you actually?
Yeah, you don't remember, like John and I did it. And John's my stepson, and
Right.
we went on a flying lesson. I don't even drive. Like my wife was trying to talk me out of it. She said, you don't even drive. They're not going to give you a pilot's license. But I didn't get a pilot's license, but I did fly a plane. I flew from basically where I am right now to Atlanta. So it's like
Okay.
it was like a 20-minute plane ride. And
Okay.
and I landed the plane. So it was
Dude, that's
fun.
the hardest part. That's the hardest part.
Yeah, I took off, I flew there, and I landed. And what was really hard for me, where I don't think I could become a pilot, is I didn't understand everything they were saying on like the micro, the communication device on the plane. Like the instructor had to tell me what they were saying. They were talking so fast, I didn't understand anybody. But another I don't know, another experiment might be saying yes to things that you normally say no to. Like there was a conference I wanted to say no to. And as an experiment, I just decided there was a whole month where I just said yes to everything people asked me to do. And I went on all these wild adventures, and it was interesting. And that was like a mini quest. And then finally, I want to talk about habits. So like, again, habits are sometimes intermingled with goals, but I want to talk specifically about like how Alrod came on the podcast recently. He has the Miracle Morning, where he has his SAVERS acronym, which, you can read it to see what it is. But I have something I call the daily practice, which is a daily set of habits that whenever I've been broke or really suffering or down or depressed, and I don't think I'm a naturally happy person. I think I'm a naturally anxious sort of person. And whenever I've done this on a daily basis, and I try to do it every day, it's really helped me. And that is to just, and you could fill in the blanks what all these things mean to you, but every day improve physically, emotionally, creatively, spiritually. So this is where you could fill in the blanks. But here's how I do it. Physically, did I sleep 8 hours? Did I do a little bit of exercise? Did I eat nutritionally? Emotionally, did I cultivate the important relationships in my life? Like today, I spoke to both my daughters, for instance, and had a coffee with my wife. So I feel like I emotionally moved the needle forward 1%. Creatively, I wrote down 10 ideas. Originally, I was going to do this podcast on 10 scams to avoid on Wall Street, but I switched it to this. But that was my 10 ideas, was 10 scams you might encounter on Wall Street, and we'll do that episode some other time. And spiritually, it might mean for some people prayer, it might mean meditation, it might mean reading the Bible or some other spiritual text. But for me, it just means, kind of surrendering that 99.999% of the universe is out of my control, and just surrendering to that, the good and the bad, and trying to find Robert Greene, I like how he describes it, find the sublime in your life. Like right now, as we talk, the sun is setting, and it's setting behind the trees near my house, and that's beautiful. So taking moments in your life to surrender and to notice the sublime in your life. I really can't wait for Robert Greene's book on this to happen. But again, for everybody, they could fill in the blanks themselves. And so that's basically it. Make a manifesto. What higher meaning is there in your life that gives you the energy to move forward? What might be, narrow that down to a specific purpose. What might be goals you have that will improve your life this year, that will help you achieve the meaning and purpose in your life? What fantastic, improbable quests can you go on that are going to give you adventures and excitement, and the people around you will marvel at them, and you'll marvel at them. You'll say to yourself, I can't believe this is happening to me, because it's something you love. By the way, how do you find something you love? Well, that's hard, because sometimes we get into these routines, and I get into this where, okay, it's 6 o'clock, time to eat dinner and watch Netflix for 4 hours, and then go to sleep and start the day again. So how do you spend the time finding things you love? There's no real answer, but the way I've done it in the past is, sometimes I'll go to a bookstore and it's almost like a magnet. Which section am I gravitating towards where I would be willing to read every single book in that section? That might mean that there's something I love there. Or what did I love as a 6-year-old, a 7-year-old, an 8-year-old, a 15-year-old, an 18-year-old, a 25-year-old? Is there something there that I could always wanted to return to, that maybe I could return to in a new way with my new experience and wisdom and whatever, or lack of wisdom, whatever, or read a lot of books. And it's like when I started day trading, I remember the whole reason I started day trading back in 1999, 2000, was I read this book, Market Wizards by Jack Schwager, about day traders. And it blew my mind. I said I wanted to be a day trader, and I started doing it. And so sometimes reading really good books by good authors will excite you. Like the great thing about reading is, and I feel, and I'm saying this to myself because I feel I haven't read as much as I used to, particularly this past year. But the great thing about reading is you're like a vampire. You get to absorb the entire life experience of another human being, the author of the book you're reading. You get to absorb that in just a few hours or a few days, when they had to spend a whole lifetime developing that experience. So it's like, hey, there's this vampire-like thing that happens when you read, and vampires have like superpowers and they live forever. So if you could find a way to be a little bit like a vampire without necessarily sucking people's blood out, although it's almost like that in a metaphorical sense, then your life's going to be better. So reading has often gotten me on quests.
Sorry, I just wanted to mention, like, when you say you didn't read as much this year, you meant you only read 100 books?
Yeah, I mean, that's just it, is that I've read the books of all of our guests. So I read probably on average two or three books a week. So but it's not like, okay, I enjoy reading all those books. And sometimes I'll seek out guests after I read their books because I like the book so much. But I haven't read a lot of fiction. This year. I haven't read a lot of books just for that were unrelated to the podcast, less than I usually do. So I really meant it that way. But I think this quest came out of me being depressed. Like after my August 2020 article that had that backlash, and Seinfeld trashed me, and my family trashed me, and friends trashed me, and ex-girlfriends wrote articles about me, and the whole thing, I think I got a little depressed. And I sort of went into my office and shut the door and didn't come out for a while. And then the TV show The Queen's Gambit came out, and it reminded me, oh, I really love this thing called chess, which is what this TV show is about. And so I started playing chess all the time. And then I figured, you know what? I'm wasting time. I'm just playing chess all day and night. And so I said, okay, well, I'm going to go on a quest. I'm going to get back to the level I was before. But even that seemed frivolous. So that's why I then put meaning around it. So really this quest was born out of really kind of sadness and depression and fear. And everything's changed. Like, I then began this quest, which forced me to improve my life and have these goals and do these experiments and reawaken my daily practice. And this has provided meaning in my life, where I'm going to write a book about it and hopefully have some impact. And so this notion of a quest not only has given me adventures, it really brought me out of, in 2020, early 2021, which was almost 3 years ago now, I was a pretty, I don't want to say severe depression, but I was down, and medication wasn't really helping. Therapy wasn't really helping. And my daily practice wasn't really helping at the time. I was kind of avoiding doing it. And it was ultimately finding something I love doing and attaching some goals and adventures and experiments and missions to it and meaning to it that really catapulted me out of the depression. And even though it's still a hard thing to do, like I'm not always succeeding at it, and that's frustrating, it really makes me happy getting up in the morning knowing I'm continuing on this quest, as does doing this podcast. I love doing this podcast. Jay, thank you once again for 2023. How many years have we been working together? It's like the seventh year we've been working together.
Yeah, it is. And I'm forever
16,
28.
17, 18, 19, 20. I have to count on my fingers now. I used to be a math genius, but now I have to count out my fingers. 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 20. 8 years. Holy
8
moly.
years. Yeah.
Oh
it's
my
crazy.
God. Jay, you must be getting sick of me.
I mean, I'm having fun. The thing is, like, looking on the James Altucher Show, it's also like kind of fulfilling because I know I'm helping people in a sense. Not me personally. I'm hoping that our show, your show, the James Altucher Show, has an impact on other people's life and also give other people meaning.
And we see it from just the letters and the emails we get. Like, send me an email at altucher@gmail.com if you want to say hi. I would love it. And subscribe to this podcast so that we go up in the rankings and continue to build audience and get great guests, and share this with your friends if you want. And for now, hopefully this was useful, and we'll be back to our regularly scheduled podcast in the next day or so. So thanks so much, everybody. Thanks, Jay.
Thank you.
My son had a gift with technology. With reliable internet at home through the Internet Essentials program, the world opened up. He's part of this next generation of young people who feel they can thrive.
Through Project UP, Comcast is committing $1 billion to help open doors for the next generation with the connectivity and skills they need to build a future of unlimited possibilities.
Entresto, sacubitril valsartan tablets, is the #1 heart failure brand prescribed by cardiologists and has helped over 1 million people with heart failure. It's a prescription medicine that treats adults with long-lasting chronic heart failure and works better when the heart cannot pump a normal amount of blood to the body.
Don't take Entresto if pregnant. It can cause harm or death to an unborn baby. Don't take Entresto with an ACE inhibitor or aliskiren, or if you've had angioedema with an ACE or ARB. Don't take with aliskiren or within 36 hours of taking an ACE inhibitor. The most serious side effects are angioedema, low blood pressure, kidney problems, or high blood potassium. Angioedema is swelling of your face, lips, tongue, and throat that may cause death. If it causes difficulty breathing, get emergency help.
Ask your doctor about Entresto. To learn more, visit support.entresto.com or call 833-446-6699. For pricing, visit Entresto.com/cost. If you can't afford your medication, Novartis may be able to help.